Good day, good day. Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Jay, and this is Homeschool Your Kids podcast. Today we have with us Amanda. Amanda, introduce yourself.
Hi, Jay. Thanks for having me. My name is Amanda Kieffer, and I'm the Vice President of Communications and Strategy for the Cardinal Institute for West Virginia Policy.
Oh, policy. Big, that's an important word.
It sounds fancier than it really is.
Right. Explain more. What do you do?
So the Cardinal Institute is a free market think tank dedicated to researching, developing, and communicating public policy ideas for the state of West Virginia. Basically, it just means that we research and promote ideas that we think are going to make the state better and that are founded in the principles of freedom. And so our vision for the state is, we call it the West Virginia Miracle. When a lot of people, when they think about West Virginia, the first thing they think about is poverty. Maybe if they know a little bit of
Really?
history. Yeah, maybe if they know a little bit of history, they think about like coal industry, or maybe if they watch a lot of Food Channel, they think about like Anthony Bourdain. But most people, their like first thoughts about West Virginia are not usually positive, and if they are, it's probably like
Mm,
country roads and John Denver. And so that's true for people in the state sometimes too. There's just kind of this, I call it like an institutional depression. My boss
mm.
likes to call it Appalachian apathy. But just for about 80 to 100 years, West Virginia has kind of been on the receiving end of bad government policy. It's been the focus of like the fossil fuel industries and like coal extraction. So there's just like a lot of really intense history there. And so a lot of people think it would take a miracle to fix West Virginia, but we believe that miracles can happen if you put some effort into it. And so we believe that the West Virginia Miracle will be built on a foundation of education freedom, economic freedom, worker freedom, and a culture of freedom embodied in the state's ethos. Mountaineers are always free. And so
Mm.
we work on researching different policies and getting those out to people and helping get their support so that we can make the state a better place to live.
Wow, you just said a lot. Yeah. West Virginia, like I've never really like I grew up in Virginia. I don't know if I shared that or not, but I did. I grew up in Virginia, but West Virginia, I've never been to West Virginia. I've
Yeah.
never like for all of my years in Virginia, I've never been to West Virginia. But like you said, when people speak of West Virginia, all the conversation I heard, I'm not going to mention, some of them here, but it is in a negative light. More so that is rural,
Hmm.
like country, things of that nature. I think when I
Yeah,
think of West Virginia, I think mountains. I don't know.
exactly. It's
I don't.
beautiful. It's a beautiful place to be. The mountains are gorgeous. And I actually grew up in Kentucky, in southern Kentucky. And
Mm,
so I kind of think of like Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, Virginia as like sister states, kind of all making
mm-hmm.
up a region and all having a lot in common and kind of at varying stages of development and
Yeah.
success in life. And so I tell people, like, when they ask, like, you're not from West Virginia originally, so like, why would you care about West Virginia? And like, well, for one, I love a really good underdog story. Who doesn't? But for
Mm-hmm.
two, I really do believe that if we can fix the problems in West Virginia, we can fix them in the neighboring states, the country, and probably even the world. So I really believe that West Virginia is ground zero for a lot of really cool things that are happening. And I
No.
want everyone else to take a look at West Virginia and like feel really inspired.
Oh, that is so dope. And I love that y'all are really big on freedom. Like your focus
Mhm.
is freedom, freedom across the board. And definitely starting with freedom in education is very, very important because a lot of people don't understand how free they are already in
Mhm.
education. They don't necessarily think about the other choices that they have when it comes to choosing an educational path. So
Yeah.
I
Or
love
they
what
might
you all
not
are doing.
realize the lack of freedom that they have either. And that was part
Mm.
of the issue in West Virginia. So in West Virginia, there really was no school choice until 2020, well, 2020, when we passed the charter school law, and then 2021 with the Hope Scholarship, which is our state's education savings account. Before then, you could homeschool, you could do private school, and then public school. And it was like 97% of kids, I think, were in public school at the time. And there was very little open enrollment, so like you couldn't transfer between districts very easily. And homeschooling laws in West Virginia, I think if you look at like HSLDA's map, it's like moderately restrictive. So like you do have some reporting requirements and like end of the year assessments and things like that. So it was kind of like middle of the road for restrictions. And the same with kind of like private school freedoms. But there wasn't really any opportunity for anyone that couldn't afford to pay out of pocket for like the whole costs. And granted, like West Virginia cost of living is pretty cheap for the most part, but there are parts in the state where, you know, if you don't have an extra several $1,000s, trying to educate your kid outside of the traditional system is really difficult and expensive. And so school choice programs have really helped open that up for a lot of people. And that's a big part of kind of what we mean by education freedom at the Cardinal, is like helping people understand what that could look like and how exciting it is to have those options.
Nice. So do you all do work directly with families, or are y'all more on the end, just the policy end, like the making sure that people are aware of the different legislations and things of that nature?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a mix. Mostly the policy end, because we're mostly like a research group. So when things kind of started several years ago, it was a matter of like researching things. So like, how are our schools doing? How much do like teachers' pensions cost? And what are your options in West Virginia? And what could these different school choice programs that other states have look like if we brought them to West Virginia? And then we kind of helped with the policy development as legislators were trying to consider like passing laws. And so we were kind of part of the process of just like, here's what the research says, here's what good programs look like, here's what bad programs that don't work look like, and helping kind of bring in experts from other places. And then putting that like West Virginia spin on it with like what our numbers are. And then as the program passed, there wasn't an infrastructure, like, I mean, there's a little bit of an infrastructure because homeschoolers are, I mean, just kind of amazing what they're able to do. But there wasn't like a school choice infrastructure existing in West Virginia. So we kind of helped build a bit of a coalition. And we've seen a lot of growth since then. So like now we have two, at least two, I think maybe three full like parent organizations that just do parent advocacy with parents and helping them navigate their choices. We run a Facebook group called Homeschoolers in West Virginia, and it's for Hope Scholarship families and education service providers who are working with the Hope Scholarship. And I'm the primary admin in the group right now. And so I go in and I help answer questions about the Hope Scholarship law, and I help parents navigate their options and connect them to resources. But there are other people that do it better than I do. And so I often will direct people to those who are even more knowledgeable. And we're just continuing to do like research on like education finance and how's the program doing, because we get a lot of pushback from people that don't like school choice. And we're trying to help kind of show with both the stories of real individuals and like the numbers that these programs are a good thing and they're viable.
And to get pushback for school, like, what is that even like? Why? Why would people want people to have choices? That is just the weirdest thing ever, but it is a thing. Like,
It is a
honestly.
thing. It's hard for me to imagine sometimes because I love freedom and choices so much. It's just kind of ingrained in my personality. But I do have a lot of friends who are teachers in the public school system. And so I understand that a lot of people who just don't know how the programs work are concerned about like public schools not getting enough money or worrying about like teachers who are overburdened. And I think those are really legitimate concerns that people have, but I don't think that fighting school choice is the way to fix those things. And I
Yeah, I
don't
was
think
gonna
school choice
say,
makes those problems worse.
yeah, like what, speaking from a former teacher, first of all, public school funding, I don't think there's an issue with public school funding. I feel like there's an issue with the misdirecting of public school
Amen.
funding. Um, and two, teachers are going to bet like what like they're going to be overworked and underpaid regardless of school choice. Like you would think that school choice would alleviate some of the stressors in general, and it brings parent involvement back. And I feel like that's what I saw lacking the most in public school setting, was that there wasn't a lot of parent involvement, and we need parent involvement.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from teachers that like they want more parent involvement. And I think school choice is a great way to do that because not only is it a great way for parents who are like actively choosing to homeschool or go to a private school or some sort of like micro school or co-op, but for those that are staying in public school, they have more like reason to actively choose their public school.
Yeah.
And they have more opportunities to choose public schools in another district or to choose to do part-time. So like with the Hope Scholarship and with our traditional homeschooling law in West Virginia, you can be a part-time public school student and still be like officially a homeschooler or officially a Hope Scholarship student. And so parents just get a lot more opportunity to have that kind of like control and input, and that like I think it builds more of a respectful relationship with teachers where you can have more of a like an equal conversation rather than feeling like one person feeling like they're superior or like they don't have
Yes.
any say in the way the system works.
Yes,
And
because it's a
and
partnership.
also, at least for me, like I don't know about you, but like all the like political news in the last several years has been like school board fights and like all sorts of crazy drama. And I think school choice helps kind of like relieve some of that pressure that parents feel, like that desperation that like if my school board's doing something crazy, I have no escape.
It's,
And
I was
so
gonna
it gives the
say,
parents that are like that stressed, like an out basically, and it gives teachers an opportunity as well to like I like to say that school choice is for teachers too. Like historically, if you want to teach, you really only have the option of teaching in a public school, right? Like you can teach in a private school, but you're going to get paid even less than you get paid in a public school. My mother-in-law is a private school teacher, and she was sharing her salary with me the other day, and I was just absolutely appalled on her behalf. It made me really angry. But
right?
when you're like in a private school, you're usually doing it because you're like mission driven. And so it's even less pay. So like for most people that are trying to make like a serious living out of being a teacher, public school's your only option. And if you don't like the administrative burden, or if you're having a lot of like discipline issues in your classroom, or if you have some sort of like faith-based qualms with what you're teaching, you don't have a say in that. And I think school choice gives teachers a lot of power to actually teach and like have control over their careers.
Yeah, I wouldn't I don't know. I mean, I guess we'll have to talk to teachers that are still in the classroom and get their opinion on school choice, but I don't see that being a problem for them. Like I don't think that would be necessary because as a teacher, you want to advocate for the best thing. Like you see a student who's struggling in the public school setting, and like it would I feel like it'd be your duty to be like, hey, you know what? Think you should check out these micro schools because this isn't working for Timmy. Okay, so let's see what other options we have available for him, and that'll alleviate things because I feel like one of the biggest issues, also besides teachers' pay, of course, is class sizes. Our class sizes are way too big in public school, and if I don't know if you well you're with policies, I know you do, but the like there's a lot of schools that are losing teachers
Mhm.
rapidly, and so with that they're having to combine or having to place students in already oversized classes, so it's like that's not going down. And I don't think that teachers are leaving the profession because of school choice.
No, definitely not. Like there's a very long laundry list of why teachers are leaving, and it is not school choice.
Exactly. So yeah,
Burnout
I
is
don't,
real.
right? So tell us more about Hope Scholarship. Is that like the ESA or is that something separated?
Yeah. So
Okay.
if you or your listeners are familiar with like Arizona's program, they have the
Yeah.
empowerment scholarship accounts. In Florida, they have a couple different programs, and a bunch of different states have passed several. But West Virginia, we call ours the Hope Scholarship because we wanted to give hope to families. And
Nice.
it is not a special acronym. People think it is, but it's one of those few times where the government did not
Hope.
slap an acronym on
Like it's
something.
just hope.
It's just hope. But yeah, it's an education savings account program. So the 100% of the state portion of education funding in West Virginia goes into an account for the parent to direct. And so that money can go towards like homeschooling curriculum. It can go toward a participating private school, a micro school. One thing that I've seen that's really popular is using it for like speech therapy and dyslexia
Mm,
therapies. You can use it for like educational camps, technologies like laptops, things like that. And it's been a really awesome opportunity for a lot of families that couldn't otherwise afford to choose something other than their public school, but who were feeling like their public school wasn't meeting their needs or their child's needs. And so we've got about, the last number that like the treasurer's office released was like, I think 6,300 students participating.
Okay.
And so it's a growing number of families that are using this as their option. And in West Virginia, I don't know how like other states do it. I think every state does it a little differently. But in West Virginia, if you want to do something that's not like your assigned district school, you have to choose like an exemption from compulsory education. And so like the primary exemptions are traditional homeschooling, which is exemption C. And that's just what you think it is. It's just regular homeschooling, doing your thing, being free. And then there's exemptions B and K, which are two different kinds of private school. And then the Hope Scholarship is exemption M, as in like max. And under the Hope Scholarship, you can do either of those other two kinds of like education, but with some state funds, basically. And so like the rules are really, really similar to whether or not like you were doing one of the others. You just have to report like annually instead of like every couple of years. And for the most part, it's pretty much the exact same experience for people. The only real difference is that more frequent reporting, and then there's like an online portal where you go in to like look at people who are participating and like spend your dollars.
Okay. Is it a set amount or does it vary?
Yeah, well, kind of both. So it's 100% of the state portion of funding. So like education funding is funded at like the local level, the state level, and the federal level, right? And in West Virginia, all of that together is added up to about $15,000, and about like just shy of 5,000 of that is the state portion. And
Okay.
so the state portion is what goes into the account. The public schools still keep any of like the federal money that they're eligible for, and all like local dollars that they raise through like property taxes and levies. That all stays. But that state portion goes and follows the student wherever their parent wants them to go. And that amount changes a little bit because the funding formula changes every year, because it's, you know, based on like enrollment and population and those sorts of things. So the very first year that we had Hope, which was the 2022-2023 school year, it was about $4,300. And this year it's going to be about $4,900. So like the amount has increased a little bit.
Nice. Impressive. What led you to this work? Like, how did you get to Cardinal Institute?
That's kind of a long story.
We got time, Amanda.
Well, so I grew up in Kentucky, in Southern Kentucky. I don't know if anybody listens to your podcast is familiar with Kentucky at all, but I grew up in like the Bowling Green area in Warren County, which is about like an hour and 15 minutes north of Nashville. So my hometown's actually become a bit of a Nashville like commuter city at this point. Anytime I go home, it's like getting really big. Traffic's gotten a lot worse.
Really?
But that's where I grew up. I went to college at Liberty University in Virginia, in Lynchburg, Virginia. And I studied Government Western Legal Traditions is the full title. It's basically a pre-law degree. And I thought I was going to go to law school, but after 4 years of college, I needed a break. So I was like, this is exhausting. I can't keep this up. I'm too type A. I'm a little burnt out. So I went home and spent a year working for my dad. And my dad does mobility and accessibility equipment. So like scooters, ramps, elevators, that sort of thing, which was a really cool experience. And I loved helping people. Most of the people we worked with were veterans through the VA. He had like a VA contract. But I really missed like thinking about big ideas. I missed advocating for people. I missed like my pre-law degree was basically a lot of like learning about the Constitution and history and like public policy and just big ideas about how the country like could be, used to be, should be, those kinds of things. And I was looking for opportunities to do that, and I had a friend who was from college who was working in DC, and he suggested a fellowship program called the Koch Associates program. And it's basically like a year-long fellowship program where you learn about like big ideas and like classical, liberal, classical American thought while working like a public policy job at some sort of like think tank or national nonprofit. And when I like went and applied for that, I got into the program and they had like a job portal where you could like apply to actual jobs with people. And Cardinal was there. It's like, this looks interesting. It's like not DC because I'd done my time in DC as an intern and DC was not for me.
Not coming from Kentucky.
No, I feel like you have to be a special kind of person to really love DC. Like I enjoy visiting, but DC is just, my mom calls it like going to a foreign country. She's like, you enter DC and then when you leave DC, you're back in normal America. Like it just feels different. Not to like play up on the stereotypes, like of people calling DC the swamp, but like it really is just a totally different way of being than the rest of America. And I really wanted to be in, like, for lack of a better word, like normal America. And West Virginia was really close to home. It was a place I hadn't lived before. And to me, it sounded like a really exciting opportunity. I was going to get to work on policy. It was going to be state-based where I felt like I could have a bigger impact and not like hit my head against a brick wall for the next 20 years. And it would be close enough that like I could visit family.
Nice.
And it was a communications job. So I didn't feel especially qualified to do like hardcore policy research. So like a lot of that usually involves having like your PhD in economics or something similar. And math is not my strong suit. I'm gonna be really honest, it's not. So I was like, comms sounds like a great way to go. It was much more in line with like my pre-law experience, reading, writing, talking to people. Sounds great. And so that's how I ended up at Cardinal. I packed up my bags from my parents' place. I moved into an apartment in Charleston and I started working with the team. At the time, there were just 3 of us. It was Garrett, my boss, he's our president, Jessie, our director of policy. At the time, she was doing development. So she was doing fundraising because we were such a small shop. She wasn't even getting to do the research stuff at the time. And then me, I had no idea what I was doing. And they just kind of were like, here, good luck. And the biggest thing we were working on at the time was education, because at the time we didn't have any school choice options. We all felt like education freedom was the very first foundational thing we needed to get right before we could like fix taxes or fix zoning laws. Like none of that stuff really matters as much if your kids aren't getting educated and they don't feel like they have any hope for like staying at home and having a good life. And if you look up West Virginia's like education system, it's basically at the bottom of every ranking. Usually it's like jockeying with maybe like one other state. And we really wanted to make sure that kids had viable options and that parents felt like they had power. And at the time, I don't know if you remember this or were like involved in any way, but like 2017, 2018, 2019 was like the height of the Red for Ed movement. And West Virginia was like where it was all happening. So it was like strikes and all sorts of crazy like picketing, and the news was really wild. And it was just a very interesting time to live like 2 blocks from the state capitol. And so yeah, that was kind of how I got involved. And for me, I think what really kind of led to my passion was that I grew up, my parents chose private school for me through 8th grade. And it was a small, like non-denominational Christian private school in Kentucky. And when I got to my 8th grade graduation, the school wasn't big enough to sustain a high school. So I needed to go to public school. But the public school I was zoned for, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't as high quality, and it wasn't where my friends were because I'd been going to private school in a different county. And so my mom, bless her, like she's a pit bull mom. Like my mom's a redhead and she like leans into it. And so she advocated so hard for me. We put together like an application packet. She made me get teachers' references and put a resume together. And she like submitted it to the public school that I wanted to attend, which at the time was double capacity. So the school was built for like 1,000 kids and they had 1,800 and they were about to split it into 2 districts. And so they just were like not accepting kids. And everybody told my mom, like, you can't do it. Like, they're not going to take her. Well, my mom called up the like vice principal and was like, have you looked at her packet? You need to look at it. And he like pulled up in my packet and was like, oh, this is great. Like, she looks awesome. Let's let her in. And
Oh,
so my
nice.
mom just like really fought for me, and like she like got all sorts of references, and just she really worked hard. It was kind of like applying to college is what it felt like. Um and so like I wanted other people who maybe their parents weren't able to do that, or for whatever
Mhm.
reason just weren't in the right position to advocate that way, or didn't have the same opportunities, or you know, whatever it was, to like be able to access that sort of thing without feeling like they had to have like my pit bull white suburban mom in their
Yeah.
backyard doing things for them. And I also like, not everyone can afford private school. My dad's a small business owner, and so my parents prioritized that, but not everyone can afford like 5, 10, whatever grand a year. And I really feel like it's important for families to be able to access those opportunities. And when I met my husband, he was homeschooled. So his whole experience was much more, even more free than like free and like do what
Mhm.
you want than my experience was. And so just kind of all of that like added up to like a growing passion for school choice. And so like when Cardinal like, because I went into this like I was like fresh out of college. I was like 22. I had no idea what I was doing with my life. And I show up and they start explaining some of these policies like, well, this just makes perfect sense to me. Like, why isn't everybody doing this? And so Cardinal really helps give me an avenue for like honing that passion for education and for like opportunity for people. And then having my daughter made it even more like
Oh,
acute and
yes.
obvious, like how important this is. So my daughter is, let's see, today is May 9th. So she's like 27 months now. She's just over 2.
Amanda, we still counting those months. Oh my goodness. 27. We just said we're not doing math. We're
I
not
know.
doing
I'm like,
math. But yes.
well, like she's still in that age where like the months matter, but she's over 2, so people kind of look at you
Yeah.
like, why are you still counting months?
She's my child.
Yeah, because she's mine, and I like keeping track. But yeah, so she's like 2. She's absolutely amazing, and like it just really has made it even more personal than it was before. Because like now I have my own kid that I want to advocate for, and so I don't know that I can officially say I'm homeschooling yet. It kind of
You
depends
can.
on like your philosophy, I guess. But I work full time from home, and my daughter is full time at home with me. And so there's a lot of like taking breaks to read to my daughter, or like
Yeah.
she does a lot of independent play. And it's a lot of really exciting and lovely chaos. But
Of course.
it's just so great to get to keep her at home.
Yes. And then I mean, of course, your husband's with it because he was
Mm-hmm.
homeschooled. So
Oh
that's
yeah.
dope. How
Yeah.
how did he say his experience was?
Oh, yeah, I think he would say he really loved it. His parents were missionaries. So his
Mm.
parents, well, they still are technically missionaries with Wycliffe Bible translators. And when he was growing up, they were overseas. And
Oh,
so it
wow.
just made a lot of sense for their family to homeschool. They didn't want to be like pulling their kids in and out of foreign public schools or trying to find private schools and like all that sort of thing. And so homeschooling just made a lot of sense. And I think my husband really enjoyed it and loved it. His mom, Lori, my mother-in-law, she's a teacher as well. So like before she had the boys, she taught like Spanish classes in public high school, and then she homeschooled her kids. And then as her last son was graduating, she went back to get her master's in math education. And so she went back to teaching. So she's teaching again at like private Christian school. She also teaches for
Oh,
Kepler Education Online, which is like a classical Christian, like homeschool supplement online community. And I've never met someone who loves math quite so much and who's so good at it. And it's really impressive. And she somehow passed that love and like skill with math onto her kids.
nice.
And I find that like to be really inspiring. And I think all of her sons would say that they absolutely are over the moon grateful for the homeschooling education they got. The oldest son, Luke, he ended up in West Point and in the military. My husband, we both went to Liberty, and he did his master's at Hillsdale College, and now he's a computer programmer doing software engineering. And then the youngest is still in college. But I think they're all kind of amazingly brilliant, and they all point to their mom.
Oh, that's
So,
so beautiful.
yeah.
That's awesome. Then you already have your community.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
that
it's
is
been great. And the oldest brother, so my sister-in-law and brother-in-law, they have two. They have a 4-year-old and a 2.5-year-old. And they've kind of started doing a little bit of like preschool stuff. And they plan to homeschool because they're in the military. So again, it just kind of makes sense
nice.
with like that lifestyle where you have to move a lot. And both of them were homeschooled. So they're just really dedicated to it. Their parents homeschooled. Like there's just a lot of roots and family there. And then with my husband and me, I did private and public and he did homeschool. So like we've kind of covered the whole spectrum of like
Yes.
the main options. And I wouldn't say that I have anything like negative to say about my private school or public school experience. I think as far as those things go, they were really great. But as I've like become an adult myself and like reflected on what I want my life to look like, homeschooling just provides a lot more like freedom. It provides more like curriculum options, to be honest. And I think more opportunity to be like really intentional about like what I want my education philosophy to look like. And honestly, just like parenting, like my relationship with my daughter, like homeschooling just provides just more opportunity to actually parent my daughter, if that makes sense. Like my dad was a small business owner, and so he was working like 80, 100-hour weeks, like all the
Mm.
time, very busy. And my mom helped a lot with like small business stuff over the years, and she was very involved in like the PTAs and all of that. But as I like reflected on my childhood, like we really only got like a couple hours in the evening, and maybe we'd get weekends if my dad wasn't working. And so we had to do a lot of like special things to be able to have a lot of quality family time. And I really want more family time.
Mm.
And so I think homeschooling is just a great way to do that. And so far, even though we're not formally schooling yet, it has been that like my daughter's at home and I get to see her every day and watch her try to figure out how to sing her ABCs.
Yeah.
And it's really fun.
I know, and so rewarding. And I love how you put that, like you want to keep parenting.
Mhm.
Because and that's why I talk about the partnership that schools have to have with parents, because it shouldn't be a pass off thing. Like
Yeah.
you recognize that you didn't get very much time with your parents once school was involved. Like you go to school for 7 to 8 hours and then you come home, you gotta go to 3, maybe 4 hours before having to go to bed and then
And it's
do the
even
home.
more if you have extracurriculars, like those things take up time. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And depending on what time your parents get off, it
Mhm.
all factors in, it really does. But homeschool does offer that relationship that a lot of people are missing out because of so many hours of separation.
Yeah.
Um, it
And it
definitely
can
means
feel really intimidating. Like
yes.
I work in like education policy. I spend a lot of time around really awesome and inspiring homeschool moms. And I'm constantly on like, I don't know how you guys are doing it. It's incredible. It's kind of overwhelming sometimes to think about it. But if you can just find like one person who can kind of hold your hand for a little bit and help you
Yes.
figure out the ropes, then it's really not that bad.
I know the support is needed, community, and like I say, you already have basically your whole community
Yeah, I
already.
think so. Between work and I've met some really awesome like homeschool moms through work that are all now friends, and my husband's family, like I feel pretty lucky. But that's also like just more reason that I want to see more school choice options and more like
Yes.
organizations that are able to help families, because not everybody has that like family infrastructure. Like they need a buddy like to come
Yes.
alongside and help them. And so I
Indeed.
love seeing like things like your podcast. Like I have a long list of my favorite podcasts. They're all like homeschool themed. And like organizations in West Virginia, we have Love Your School West Virginia and the West Virginia Families United for Education. And they both are dedicated to like coming alongside parents and helping them
Mhm.
navigate the what feels like massive, overwhelming options that are all so new because they've only been there less than 5 years. And so people are
Mhm.
still like, what is school choice? How does this work? I didn't know I could do anything different. And so having people that have like done it before you to come along is like a guide is just so helpful.
It is. It is. It's the support that's needed. Like, representation matters. You need to see someone doing what you're
Mhm.
thinking about doing. Because it's like, okay, like this seems good in my head. It's like I got this vision. But once you know and talk to people that have gone through it and have experience, like I got to speak with Miss Laura yesterday, and she just lit up my whole world. She started homeschool in 1994. Okay. So she is beyond a
Wow.
veteran. Yes, right. And just hearing her, just her reason why, and just seeing her passion, it was so like it's energizing. It was really energizing. It was really like, okay, girl, yeah, keep going. You doing what you're supposed to be doing. Keep talking to them. Keep, doing what your gut is telling you that you need to be doing. And I love what you all are doing. I love what y'all are standing for, because education is really big. Like,
It
it's
is.
wild that, it's kind of put to the wayside a lot, but it's 13 years of an individual's life.
Mhm.
Their prime years, and then they're expected to enter into the world after those years are over and then just succeed. And so it's
Mhm.
like, with this, one size fit all way of going approach to it, as far as how the public school is set up and designed, it's really wild that you have to
Yeah.
put up the fight for certain school choice, like for parents to be able to decide, or to be able to go to a school that fits your child. It's wild that we have to have those conversations. It's wild that West Virginia just got into doing it like, yeah,
Yeah, I
2020.
think if I remember, we were like the 45th state to get charter schools. We're like way down the list. We're like, well, we're late to the party, but here we are.
I know, and that's just so wild to hear, because you think of things, but I also like I think of things on terms like my mom was born in 1963, so I always think back to that and
Mhm.
realize just how new everything is, like
Yeah,
as far as systems, just the design of things. And we do
it
have to put up the
is.
fight for certain things to change. And I love that y'all are doing it, because I always say, like, legislation and policy and all that stuff, I know my organization will not venture into that. I feel like we have some great people who are doing it. And I'm
Well,
leaving
everybody
that.
has to know like what their strength is and like
Yes.
play to that. And so that's why like I love working with other organizations that are like even better at the parent navigation. And like everyone kind of knows what their thing is and is really good at their thing, and like working together just makes it so much better. And that way like you can learn from each other and play off each other's strengths and like help each other in your weak spots. So
Yes. All things come together for the greater good. I always say
yeah,
that. But it really does, because this is needed. Like, we are making the
it
changes,
is.
and I love having these conversations with individuals who are following their passion. Like, you didn't know
Mhm.
exactly what you wanted to do, but you knew you wanted to help people and
Sometimes you
advocate.
stumble into your passion and you like figure it out.
Right? Right? Because I'm like, I thought teaching was just everything. Like, I'm gonna be a teacher forever. And then I got into my own classroom. I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm not gonna be a teacher forever.
It's so
But in a
sad though,
sense,
because like I know so many people that are just like they're amazing teachers. They love kids, they're great at teaching, and but like the classroom just kills all the joy. It just
it's too
does
much.
because
And
the
it's not the
system.
students. Yeah, it's not. I
Oh,
tell people all the time, we're not running from the students. Teachers who are resigning or leaving, it's not necessarily because of the students. It's because of all the other things that are
mhm,
being pushed on you outside of the classroom. And to have individuals, my biggest thing was to have people come from downtown to tell you what you need to be doing in a classroom that you've been in for like 95 days. And these kids well beyond what they know, and it's insulting,
mhm.
and teachers are just like, yo, I'm way more valuable than this. And I love that teachers are waking up to understanding, like, I can't go teach in another setting. I can create a resource that provides this. I can go tutor. I can go create a virtual school. I can go do a lot of other things besides be devalued and unappreciated. Because those little teacher appreciation weeks where I'm just getting the mug or a button, like, the
I don't
audacity.
think I feel very appreciated right now.
What? Not at all. Not even a little bit. So
That's so
it's just,
funny.
I just love to see change change being made. And you are a walking testament of that. Like you've actually
Thank
seen the
you.
policies being put in place for parents to be able to be free.
Yeah, it's been a huge joy and honor to get to be part of it. And I love getting to celebrate what other people are doing. That's one of the things, you and I met at the National School Choice Week partner exchange. And one of the things we do during National School Choice Week every year is we call like our West Virginia School Choice Awards. And we always do an educator of the year. Because like, every state has like a teacher of the year, but it's just for like the public school system. And so we wanted to honor all the teachers and all the educators of all sorts and kinds. And so for the last like 5 or 6 years, we've been having an educator of the year. And so many of them are just like incredible, like parents and teachers and entrepreneurs who needed to do something different to like sustain their teaching passion and wanted to advocate for kids in a way that they weren't able to do in the regular classroom. And I love hearing all their stories because so many of them are just such incredible people.
Yes, yes, it is. It is so rewarding to see and know because the media often paints the picture where it's like, things are looking a little meek out here. Like,
Mhm.
oh my God, should I go outside? But then you have these conversations, you're like, oh, people are putting in work. People are doing what is necessary for us to be able to be essentially free. Like we're supposed to be in the land of the free, but we're still fighting for those
Okay.
necessary freedoms. So it's just nice to see and hear people who value actual, real freedom and
And
being
I'll
free.
I'll go back to my pre-law undergrad roots. And one of the things that the founder said is that like we have a republic if you can keep it. And so like you have to
Mm,
fight to keep it. Like you can't just like sit back and expect it to be there in 30 years, right? Like if you want to see a community that's flourishing, if you want to see an America that reflects the values we hold in common and that is free for everybody, like that's something that you have to be actively involved in fighting for. That doesn't mean you have to be a policy person. It's not for
yeah,
everybody, but like whether that's like being a teacher in your community or working at your local nonprofit or your church or voting or being an active parent, like those are all ways that you can
yeah,
fight to keep America free for everybody and to
yeah,
continue to improve the opportunities everybody has. And so like we can't just like sit there and kind of expect it to just materialize. I wish I could,
right,
but it just doesn't work like
right.
that. It's something that we all have to put like some effort into, and it looks different for everybody, but I
Indeed.
I love seeing the different ways that people do that.
Yes, yes. And I feel like, while the public school system is the public school system, I feel in order for us to see effective change in the public school system is for it to be challenged in a sense.
Mhm.
So I don't necessarily push for parents to pull their kids from public school, but I do advocate for parents to be present while their
Mhm.
children are in public school. So if you're seeing something that's not correct, or you see that your child is not being pushed to their fullest potential or whatever it may be, your voice is needed for that school to make a change. Like you just said, like we have to
Yeah.
do what we see is right. Because if not, it's just going to keep on going and doing what it's been doing.
Mhm.
And
And I think COVID did that for a lot of parents. Like it gave them the chance to like take a breather from their day-to-day life and be like, whoa, I'm seeing things for the first time that I hadn't been able to see. And
yes,
a lot of parents didn't like what they were seeing.
right.
And so like they were like, well,
Them
we got to
Zooms
do
were looking
something.
real grim. Like, wait a minute now. This is what y'all be
And
doing?
but it like gave them that like window to see what they didn't know was going on or that they'd only kind of heard, but they're like, surely not in my school.
Right.
And I think it kind of gave everybody a little bit of a kick in the pants that we
Yeah.
needed to kind of like spur kind of the parent movement forward so that parents
Right.
could have a little more like power and like just voice in the whole system. And I kind of like what you said about like you need just a little bit of that like outside pressure and like challenge. I mean, we all need that, right? Like you don't grow like if you don't push yourself, right? And so like the
Yeah.
public school system can't grow and improve if it has nobody like, pushing it. It's
Pushing
like
that.
if you go to the
Yes.
gym, if you're not pushing like the weights or the reps, or if you don't have some sort of trainer yelling at you, like you need that motivation, right? You need
Right.
those pressures that like grow your muscles and grow your discipline. And for the public school system, I think that's school choice.
Yes, ma'am. It is. It is. And I thank you. I thank you. I thank Cardinal Institute. I thank y'all for everything that you're doing because it
Thank you,
is
and thank you
very
too.
much needed. Where do we find Cardinal Institute?
Well, you can find us at cardinalinstitute.com. That's our website. We're also on most social medias at Cardinal WV on Twitter, and at Team Cardinal WV on Instagram. And yeah, you can kind of follow us, interact with us, read our stuff, comment. We have like contact info on the website if you want to reach out, share your story, get involved, or collaborate in some cool way.
Yes, and you all are resource providers. Y'all have a lot of y'all can point people in directions.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
hey, this is what you're looking for.
Our president likes to call it being like connective tissue. Like we like being like the
Nice.
connectors, the people that are like, oh yeah, we know someone who can help you with this, and
Yes.
we know someone over here, and so we like kind of being that like hub for people.
Yes, yes. Keep pushing for West Virginia. I love the how you put it. Like it could be the center of it all. Like everything goes out from it. Like, you know, change. I like it. I like
I
it.
love it.
What's three things you would tell parents who, let's see, that are walking into school choice?
Oh goodness. I think the first thing I'd say is you can do it. It can feel really scary, but anyone can figure it out. Anyone can learn it. Um, And I would also say just find your people. So like that could be your local think tank. Every state's got somebody doing what we do. It could be your local parent group. It could be a school that might be able to help you, point you in the right direction. But finding your people is really important. And then third, I think just you'll be amazed at the opportunities that exist. Like if you can dream it, it exists. And if it doesn't, maybe you're the one that's supposed to make it happen. And I think so many people just like think are limited and are like, oh, well, that couldn't possibly be possible. But it is. It is.
Yeah.
I have seen some of the most incredible like kinds of schools and co-ops and like extracurricular opportunities, not just in West Virginia, but like across the country. Things that I would have never dreamed of. But like your people, your community, your needs, and you can create something really cool.
Yes, I love that, Amanda. Those are great. Yes. Think it, believe it,
Thanks, Jay.
achieve it. Yes, of course. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for just everything that you're doing, really.
I appreciate
It's
it. And
very
we're
important.
excited. You're coming out in July for the Homeschool Your Kids Expo.
Yes,
So we're
ma'am.
gonna have you in Charleston, and I'm excited to get to do that because
I know I'm excited to see Charleston.
I love like school fairs and showcases and like all those chances. My friends used to tease me in college because I'm always that person that goes to convention with a bag and is like, let me get all the brochure and all the freebies.
That's my girls. That's
So
especially my
I'm like,
10-year-old. She's
there's too
ready.
much good stuff.
Yes, yes. And there's so much to learn. And like you said, seeing what people are creating and doing, it's just so it's beautiful and refreshing. It's
It
like,
is, and I'm taking
okay.
notes. My daughter's too. So like I'm still very much in that like let me figure out where I want to go, what I
Yes.
want to do, how I want to do it phase. And so I'm just like every time I see someone doing something new, I'm like, oh, that's cool. Let me jot that down.
Yes, 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 yes. I'm excited. I'm excited to see West Virginia and all the beauty that I know it holds. So, and I'm excited to meeting you all.
Yeah, it's
Well,
gonna be
I've
great.
met you all before, but again, in person. But yeah, so this is going to be fun. And yes, yes. So,
Yeah.
families, if you're in West Virginia, or even if you're not, understand that there's people that's doing the work to make sure that your choice is available. It's all about choices because I feel like choices equals freedom. When you have a choice in something, it's freedom. Never feel like you're railroaded or feel like something has to be or that you have to stick with this program that is not working for you or your family. You have a choice. So tap into those choices. trust the process, trust yourself, listen to
Mhm.
yourself. And like Amanda said, if something is not available for you, then maybe you are the one that needs to create that. So don't be afraid, because baby steps, but know this kid.